If you care about the WNBA, you know this offseason was never going to be quiet. But where a lot of us hoped we'd be celebrating a new era for the league, we're instead stuck in limbo. The collective bargaining agreement deadline has come and gone, there's no new deal in place, and the temperature around the negotiations just went way up. What was supposed to be the moment where players and league finally locked in on a shared vision for the next chapter has turned into a very public standoff, and right in the middle of it, whether they like it or not, are some of the biggest names in the game, Napheesa Collier and Breanna Stewart. They're not just MVP-level players for the Lynx and the Liberty, they're vice presidents of the Players Union and the faces everybody looks to when things get this serious. Let's start with where things stand technically, because the process side of this is important. The extended CBA deadline hit yesterday. No agreement, no last-minute extension. That means the WNBA and the Players Association are now operating under what's known as status quo. In simple terms, the old CBA is still in effect for now. The league hasn't locked anybody out, the players haven't gone on strike. Everyone keeps moving under the terms of the previous contract while negotiations continue. On paper, that sounds calm. No games have been canceled yet, no one's barred from facilities, but if you've been watching the discourse, you know it doesn't feel calm at all. Uncertainty is sky high. People want answers about salaries, revenue sharing, travel, roster spots, and maybe most urgently, what this means for the 2026 WNBA season. Breanna Stewart has been one of the most visible figures throughout this entire process. As a WNBPA vice president and superstar for New York, she's in those rooms, on those calls, talking directly with Commissioner Cathy Engelbert's side and with union leadership. ESPN's Kendra Andrews reported that Stewie was already telling people before the deadline that another extension wasn't happening. In other words, everyone knew the date was coming and that they weren't going to get a full deal done in time. At the same time, the expectation she laid out was that both sides would keep negotiating in good faith. That's the key phrase here. Nobody is flipping the table over, but nobody is pretending this is fine either. This is a high-stakes back and forth with millions of dollars and the shape of the league's future riding on it. Then you have Napheesa Collier, also a union vice president, who has quickly become one of the clearest, bluntest voices in this fight. Collier isn't just arguing about a percentage point here or a bonus there. She's talking about the bigger picture, about what kind of league this is going to be, and how seriously it's going to treat the people who built its current success. One of the points she keeps hammering is that players now have proof that alternative models can work. She and Stewart co-founded the unrivaled 3x3 League, a side competition that's shown you can create a new product around women's basketball, attract investment, and pay athletes in ways that aren't just scraps off the main league's table. From Collier's perspective, that matters in this negotiation. It's evidence that the old "there's just not enough money" line doesn't fly the way it used to. She's framed it in very clear moral terms. Accepting a deal that doesn't keep up with the growth of the game and doesn't respect what past generations of players went through would be a disservice, not just to today's stars, but to the pioneers who flew commercial, took second jobs, and pushed through all kinds of disrespect just so this league could exist. For her, taking less than we're owed isn't just bad business, it's an insult to the work that's already been done. All of that has made Stewart and Collier the public faces of the WNBPA's push, but obviously when tension rises, that spotlight can turn ugly. As soon as it became clear there was no deal at the deadline, social media did what social media always does. It exploded. Some fans came straight for the union. You could see people venting that the Players Association doesn't know how to negotiate, that its leadership is dragging things out unnecessarily, and that it might be time for a change at the top. One post that got a lot of attention called for Nneka Ogwumike, the union president for many years and now one of its most respected elder stateswomen, to be pushed aside, and for Collier and Stewart to be stripped of their leadership roles. That's how intense the frustration has gotten in some corners. At the same time, there were plenty of posts aimed at the league office too. Cathy Engelbert, who a lot of fans genuinely respect for the growth the WNBA has seen under her watch, also got pulled into the storm. One fan basically said, "I finally get a home team, and now the next season might be going into a lockout." Another said they were genuinely worried there might not be a full WNBA season at all. That is the level of anxiety this status quo label is masking. The reality, though, is that a strike or a lockout is not automatic from where we are now. Those are last resort options. For a strike, the players would have to vote to walk away. For a lockout, the league would have to actively decide to bar players from work. Neither side has made that move. Both know how much is at risk if things go that far. Not just money, but momentum, public goodwill, sponsorships, everything. Terry Jackson, the executive director of the WNBPA, has been trying to thread that needle publicly. She's been very clear that the current offer on the table doesn't feel right when you line it up against the value women's basketball is generating right now. Her big question is, how do you convince serious investors, corporate partners, and all these changemaker brands who say they care about women's sports that a low-ball deal is acceptable? Her point is simple. You can't tell companies, networks, and fans this is a growth league, this is a premium product, and then turn around and lock in an agreement that doesn't reflect that buzz financially. Jackson's message is basically aimed at everyone with money in the game. If you really understand what this league is worth, you won't see a weak CBA as a smart long-term investment. Even when she phrases it hypothetically, you can hear the frustration. Behind all of this, there's the calendar question. What happens to 2026? Because this isn't just about raising max salaries or changing charter flight rules for next summer. The structure and timing of the 2026 WNBA season is on the line here. Scheduling, international play, Olympic windows, overseas conflicts, expansion plans, all of that is intertwined with what the new CBA looks like. If the league and the union can hammer out a deal in the coming weeks or months, there's time to lock in a normal or even enhanced season. But if these talks drag, if trust erodes further, if either side decides they need to apply pressure by threatening games, then suddenly you're talking about shortened seasons, delayed start dates, or in the worst case, a year where fans don't get the full product they've been promised. And all of this is happening at the exact moment women's basketball has never been bigger. We've just come off a surge in college ratings, driven by players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Paige Beckers, and others. The WNBA's television numbers and attendance have been climbing. Social media engagement is through the roof. Owners are finally starting to talk about charter flights as a baseline instead of a luxury. This is not 2010. The landscape is totally different. That's why, from the players' side, there's so much insistence on this has to be the deal that matches the moment. They look at how much content they drive, how often clips go viral, how frequently the league gets name-checked on big sports shows now, and they see leverage. From their perspective, this is not the time to sign a conservative agreement and hope things naturally get better later. This is the window. From the league's standpoint, they're dealing with some real pressures too. Yes, the WNBA is growing, but it is not swimming in endless cash. Owners are balancing arena deals, travel costs, roster expansions, a potential expansion of teams themselves, and pressure from sponsors. They also have to think several years ahead. A CBA that looks generous in 2026 might feel incredibly tight by 2030 if the league doesn't hit its projected revenue targets. That's the math Engelbert's office is dealing with. So where does that leave fans right now? Honestly, stuck in the middle. They're hearing the union talk about fair value and respect. They're hearing the league talk about sustainability and incremental growth. Meanwhile, all they really want is to watch their teams, see their favorite players hoop, and not have to worry that the next big headline will be season delayed or players vote to strike. That's why the blowback online has hit everyone. Some are angry at the players for risking the season, others are furious at owners and leadership for lowballing the stars. People are picking sides without even seeing all the confidential numbers on the table. It's emotional because fans have finally invested their time, money, and feelings into this league on a large scale. The idea of losing any part of a season right when things are taking off feels like a gut punch. What's important to remember, though, is that both sides do have a shared interest. Nobody truly wants to derail the WNBA's momentum. Collier, Stewart, Nneka, Terry Jackson, they know how much more visibility and pay they all stand to gain if the league keeps rising. Cathy Engelbert and the owners know that the fastest way to scare sponsors and networks is with instability and work stoppages.
That's why the word good faith keeps coming up. As long as everyone is still at the table, still talking, still open to movement, there's a path forward. It might not be the perfect deal from either angle, but it can be a deal that pushes the league into this next phase without sacrificing the players' core demands or the league's basic financial health. At the same time, the pressure on player leaders like Stewart and Collier isn't going away. They're juggling multiple roles: ambassadors for the sport, max-level stars for their franchises, co-founders of side leagues like Unrivaled, and now lightning rods in CBA negotiations. When fans are happy, they get praise for transforming the game. When talks stall, they get tagged in angry posts demanding they step down. That's the cost of leadership in a modern league where everything is public and everyone has a platform. Over the next weeks, the key will be whether the tone around these negotiations can cool off enough for real problem-solving to happen. Will the league acknowledge that the current offer doesn't match the perception of where the WNBA is headed? Will the union find a way to claim meaningful gains without locking in an agreement that could backfire if projections don't pan out? And can both sides communicate clearly to fans that yes, this is tense, but no, they're not about to torch the season? Because one thing is clear, the outcome of this CBA fight isn't just about salaries on a spreadsheet. It's going to shape the way the 2026 season looks, how players plan their careers, and how future stars view the WNBA compared to other options. It will send a message to sponsors, broadcasters, and young hoopers watching at home about how seriously women's basketball is taken at the highest level. Right now, we're in that uncomfortable in-between, the old rules still in place, the new deal not quite there, and the clock quietly ticking toward the next season. With the spotlight squarely on these negotiations, the league and the WNBPA don't just have to reach any agreement, they have to reach one that feels worthy of the moment the game is living through. Fans are watching every move, and the next decisions from both sides will tell us a lot about what kind of future the WNBA really wants.